regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for October 20th, 2015 will come to order. I'll ask everyone to stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. The first items on our agenda are two public hearings. The first one is in regard to Ordinance 15-20, which amends Title 10 of our code entitled Animal Care and Control, and by adding a subsection, Animal Waste. Is there anyone in the audience who cares to make a comment with regard to this proposal? Hearing none, then we'll move to the second item scheduled for a public hearing, and that's in regard to Ordinance 15-21. This is also in the area of animal care and control. This would amend Chapter 2 entitled Dogs and Cats by adding a new section entitled Dogs Not to Run at Large. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make a comment with regard to that? Hearing none, the public hearings are closed, and we move now to item 1.3, which is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, which was held on September 15th and a special meeting on September 22nd. Is there a motion that the minutes of these two meetings be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, if you favor the approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes were a little weak, but there were no noes, so we're going to go on and let that pass. All right, now we move to the legislative portion of the agenda. The first one, 2.1, is in regard to Ordinance 15-15. This is a third and final reading, which amends Title 3 of the Municipal Code and adds a new section entitled Administrative Fee and a new section entitled Electronic Traffic Citation Fee. All right. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion now? Hearing none, I'll ask our city clerk, Stephanie Peterson, to call the roll.
Snyder. Aye. Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Gregg.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
6-0.
7-0, sorry.
Okay. All right, 2.2. This is also a third and final reading, and this has to do with the rezoning of approximately 2.8 acres of property located on Highway 76 near the high school, on the side by the Armory. This would change that designation from agricultural district to commercial services district. This is for a proposed Dollar General.
So
What a
moved.
surprise. It makes 4 in the city, and there's a 5th one that just opened out just outside the city. So we welcome our new retail outlets. All right, this is ordinance 15-16, scheduled for third and final reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask the roll be called.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Gregg.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder. Aye. Trotter.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right. And now 2.3 at the bottom of the first page of your agenda is in regard to ordinance 15-17. This is also a third and final reading. This would amend our zoning ordinance to include general retail trade as one of the permitted commercial activities in the CG or commercial general district. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Stephanie, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Snyder. Aye. Hubbard.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Gregg.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right.
I didn't get to vote.
That's why we were short one vote. You didn't get your name called. Alderman Head,
Oh,
what is your preference?
Yes.
Okay. It's now 7-0. All right, we move to now the top of the next page, 2.4. This also is a third and final reading. This amends the annual budget for the fiscal year 2015 by amending certain general fund items. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
second.
Any discussion now? And Stephanie, if you'll call the roll again, please.
Snyder. Aye. Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Gregg.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
Okay. 2.5 covers the log cabin. Just to wrap this up, what Paul has done is outline all this information for you, and if you have any of those items you've got additional interest in, whatever, talk to him about it, or if there's something you think that you want added, just have some discussion with him, and unless there's an objection, we will move on. Go ahead.
I did make a statement.
All right,
regarding
make
it.
your statement then.
Yes,
It'll be as brief as can,
I'll
because we're
be
getting pretty
brief.
late.
I'll be brief as I can. When we changed over to the new phase of Springfield in 1989, we knew we had a lot of infrastructural situation as the city grew. All of this is infrastructure. All of this is framing this city to be what it can become. Yes, the bill might hit, I'm told if the project started but unfinished, that might be around $16 million, but we're a corporation. Our debt service is going down, and we have to step up to the plate, because if you don't deal with it now, it's gonna cost more later, okay? Now it's time for us to have the courage, which the public want us to have the courage, okay, because we're supposed to be the visionaries, to go ahead on and get these projects off the board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. All right, discuss and possibly take action on repairs to the log cabin at Travis Price Park. I think since we met the last time, there's been some discussion that this thing could probably be wrapped up by using the amount of money that was left in there. Mr. City Engineer, how much do we have allocated for that? You've got the
I need
bid.
to answer that
Okay.
question. Thank you, Mayor. When I originally presented this budget to the board last year, we put in $30,000, we modified it to $35,000. The original intent was to replace the logs. As we went out there to look at it with an architect, a number of staff people, it was suggested, well, if we're going to go that far, maybe there's some other improvements that need to be made at the same time. Bids were taken, obviously, well above the $35,000. The board has simply rejected the bid and all the options related to it. The reason I'm bringing it back is that we did borrow the $35,000. We either have to spend it for the log cabin, and if we don't spend it for the log cabin, then we need to have some sort of similar capital outlay expenditure, because we told the state comptroller that that's what we were going to do. Now, on further review, after we, declined the bids, the Historic Commission has gone out and looked at the cabin, and they too are making a recommendation that the logs be replaced, damaged logs. I think Mr. Allen is suggesting not only that they be replaced, but they be particular logs, which are, I put poplar in it's actually yellow poplar, David, that is resistant to termites.
Right, yeah.
So,
The old poplar is the
yeah.
new growth is less.
So,
If you're dealing with old logs to start with, then you'll have poplar. You'll have access to poplar.
so their recommendation, if you are interested in proceeding with making some repairs to the cabin, is to replace the damaged logs, And Mr. Allen has also suggested that we put a small roof at the back door to keep the moisture out of the cabin. And I think you have some correspondence that I provided you from the Historic Commission and Mr. Allen. So if you have any questions.
Mr. Nutty?
Would you like for David to come to the podium?
Great.
Mayor, are we gonna make a motion now? This?
Yes, let's do.
Let's do that.
Can I ask just another question as he comes? Is some work within the $35,000?
It has to be within the
So
35.
we need to vote to give it.
All right, let's just, the floor is on for a motion on this matter.
I move that we reinstate the $35,000 to repair the log cabin.
And I second.
Okay. Now, it's on the floor.
Mayor,
David Allen, if you come forward just a minute. I think as president of the Historical Society, and I know there are a lot of people who are interested in that play, I know is in it. And Yolanda Reed, our county historian, is here, and the research on the history of this is here. That's something that we did not have when we discussed it earlier. But are you confident, David, that this can be repaired to the extent that it needs to be now within that? You are a licensed contractor also. And so I'm asking you from the standpoint of the historical perspective and also from your experience as a contractor.
Right. When I looked at everything, there were several items bid. A new roof was bid, a new floor system was bid, reconstruction of the porches was bid, and really all those other things can be repaired. The roof can be repaired. The floor system wasn't that bad. So what we recommended is the logs only in the bid, and maybe we can get that down closer to that $35,000 mark and kind of go from there.
All right, any questions of Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ms. Allen, were you aware, what brought this to your attention to take action and bring this to the board?
Oh, actually, the article in the paper, and I talked to Yolanda after I saw that.
So that's the information. Were you aware that I told Mr. Nothing not to put this on the agenda again until I got through with a review? Were you aware that maybe we could work together? Because I'm looking for a resolution on this too, and I think we can do it for less than $35,000. Had anybody told you that?
Anything less than $35,000, I'm sure this board would be glad to look at. Paul will be, he's smiling, he's be glad to see it too, so.
Well,
if we leave those other items off, you'll see a reduced rate and we'll go from there.
I have to say this point of order. The board has a prerogative to bring this back up again, so we overrode you, sir.
the board didn't bring it to the board.
Yes, it was suggested, it was suggested to come back up again, since he found all his
By
new
what board
information.
member?
It's nothing.
There was enough interest in this to bring this thing back up.
Mr. Nutting knew I was working on a resolution. Does
Do
their,
you have an objection to the president of the Historical Society, who's a contractor, kind of role in this?
I have to state the fact that I'm also in Historical Society and I am also a contractor.
All right. I didn't know that you were working on it, Mr. Sneed. I just remember that you brought up some items last time. But there shouldn't be, if we're all in there to try to get this fixed and to move forward on it, I don't think turf battles are going to help us any. So,
But they're talking with the 35,000 is the figure. I think we can do it for less.
well, we're not going to spend it if it's not needed. But we bid
I
something.
disagree with you there.
Well, that's your privilege. All right, are there any other questions, Mr. Allen?
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
from me to you?
Yes. Excuse me?
I think that we need to also point out that the comptroller is not happy with us now.
Exactly.
This was in the budget for last year,
We need to
in the
work.
bond issue. We've got to move forward.
Exactly.
Capital outlay note.
No.
Exactly.
Also, I'd like to make note that they were on the losing side of the issue when it's been brought to this board multiple times. That statement was made by one of the losing members.
It can-
Go ahead.
Well, the issue is, yes, it did get defeated. Fact still remains, and I don't take orders from individual aldermen. I have to assess what we need to be doing as a city. The fact remains, we borrowed $35,000 and we told the state comptroller that we were going to spend it for a certain item. Now, the only other thing I can say is it's my duty to bring this before you until we have some sort of resolution. If you do not want to spend it for a log cabin, what I'm telling you is you have to find some project, some capital outlay project comparable that would be more than probably acceptable to the comptroller as a substitution.
Okay. Now, is there any problem with us moving forward with this at this time to vote?
No, sir.
All right.
No problem.
David, I will thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Call for the question. If you favor this, vote aye. If you oppose, vote no.
What are we?
We're authorizing this to move forward
On the
by
$35,000.
and staying within that budget, doing what's necessary within, and staying within that budget.
Take a new bid.
It would have to be
Yeah,
rebid.
Yeah, it'll be a new bid, with this being stated. Work on the logs, don't do the floor, et cetera. Okay? That's what you're voting on. Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Stephanie.
Snyder?
Aye.
Mayor Cornell?
Aye.
Gregg? Sneed? Trotter?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
All righty. Now, let's talk about the proposed sewer extension on the old Greenbrier Pike. Paul, did you want to speak to that, or
Well,
Roger, or whomever?
the board requested that Mr. Lee Masters come back and show them the options, and Roger, if you would show them the options and give them the information.
Last month, when I came before the board, I was not as well prepared as I should have been. There were several options that I had to get back with their engineer, Terry Beers, on how the design was making the project cost. I think I'm better prepared this time. We have, this is part of the project, part of the area along the north side of Old Greenbrier Pike that was annexed when
You doing the mic? I'll hold that for you if you want me to.
that was annexed, when the legacy property was annexed, the sewer service had never been run on this part of Old Greenbrier Pike. So Mr. Fox brought it to our attention and requested that sewer service be run along Old Greenbrier Pike all the way down to serve the properties that were annexed. We have looked at several alternatives. Now, all of the alternatives start at the upper end on Old Greenbrier Pike, near
Roger.
Bill Jones Industrial Drive.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you come to the mic? I'll hold that for you.
Okay.
So the board can see it. You bring it over here. It's being televised, so we want to make sure that everyone understands.
There are three options that were evaluated, and all the options begin at the upper end on Old Greenbrier Pike near Bill Jones Industrial Drive. It comes down Old Greenbrier Pike to about 1,500 feet to a point opposite the entryway to Legacy Village Apartments. From there, we go three different directions. Alternative one would turn towards the south and enter into a manhole about 500 feet later down in Legacy Village Apartments. Alternative number two turns north. There's a city road that goes back towards the north, and then there's a field or property back there that had been used as a dump, and that has been sealed over. This would add about another 1,700 feet to go back that way. Now, the third option would be to continue down Old Greenbrier Pike for about another 700 or 800 feet. The alternative cost for alternative one is about $120,000. Cost for number two is about $245,000, and the alternative number three cost is about $235,000. All of these alternatives would provide sewer service to the properties along Old Greenbrier Pike, except for that one little piece of property. There's about a 2-acre property right in here that now houses, it's where Mr. Fox's mother used to live. That has been carved out. All of these alternatives do allow for the 22 or so acre piece of property that Mr. Fox now owns to be developed. Now, he has access to sewer now because of the 12 or 15-inch interceptor that's on the other side of Wartrace Creek. However, when we run down Old Greenbrier Pike down to his property, if we go back towards the Legacy Village Apartments, there will be a stub out, there that head towards the top of his property. Now, that's at the very top of his property, so if he wants to use that as a development point, he would have to pump up to that. The two alternatives that head down around his property both involve a creek crossing. This would involve putting in about a 12 or 15-inch steel casing pipe that would carry the 8-inch sewer pipe inside of it. Now, there's about 100 feet distance that would have to be up, and it's called an aerial crossing. We would not be able to design that as a structural problem. We would have to hire an engineer who's a structural engineer to design that. It would involve abutments on either side, possibly a pedestal in the middle of the creek. What we've done is to provide what we think is the most cost-effective solution to providing sewer service, first of those 15 or 16 properties on the upper end of Old Greenbrier Pike. Now, if this area where he carved out that 2 acres wants sewer service, our alternative there would be to get a little trencher machine, a ditch witch or something like that, and trench in an 1.25 inch line down to the corner of that property. That person would buy a specified grinder pump, would have it installed according to our specs, and then give it to us, and that would be his sewer service there to that property. So that's basically our presentation. We're recommending alternative number 1.
All right.
Roger, is that the first one? When we first talked about this, that's the one you were talking about?
That's the one going right down towards the next.
Before you had the map.
That is correct.
Okay, that plan would take care of all of the houses that were in the city, and this was annexed.
Yes, sir.
From that point all the way up to the intersection with Bill Jones Drive. But it does not get the property that Mr. Fox had where his mother lived.
That is
It
correct.
does not handle that house
Correct.
or the area north of, or I don't know whether northwest of that he was, I guess, talking about before.
Well, we would have a stub out at that manhole right there that would be the access to all of this property. He would have to pump up to it. Alternatively, he could design a sewer system that would cross the creek to any of these manholes.
Well, I understand that if he's developing it, that's something that a developer is supposed to pay for.
Correct.
But it looks to me like if we're consistent with our policy, the house, I don't know what Rusty's main focus is, whether it's the whole thing or whether it was just the house or whether it's what he wants to develop. But it looks like we ought to try to get that house taken care of, his mother's house as well, if we take care of all the rest of the houses that are up that street.
The residents, that property does not meet the definition of availability of sewer. The way our sewer use ordinance defines availability of sewer is that if sewer is on the property adjacent to the particular property, then sewer service is available. Now, he does not meet that definition, so we're not required to provide sewer service to him. If he wants sewer service, he can apply, and then we would say the only way to really cost-effectively get there would be to have a grinder pump system go up to that manhole.
What are you talking about with a system like that?
A grinder pump costs about $2,500. That's the pump, the basin, the control panel on the wall. And then we would be responsible for coming down to the corner of his property. He would have to hire a plumber to have that installed. He would purchase that, have it installed, run it over to a check valve / ball valve connection we would apply at the corner of his property.
And that would take care of the house that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
And we'd have
Would
to
it-
take care, we'd maintain that pump.
That pump
The city
station would-
maintains it after that?
Yes.
We have others in the city who have this type of setup? Is that
About
right?
3 dozen.
3 dozen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Would that also be sufficient to take care of what's proposed on that site? Did you say 2 acres?
There's about 2+ acres where his mother's house is.
Okay. Is that all we're talking about now serving?
Well, we're not going to serve that property unless they petition us to service,
Okay. All right.
because they don't meet the definition of sewer availability,
All right.
but we can get them to sewer.
Okay. Now, you've heard the proposal here, the recommendation from the Water and Sewer Department, which looks at the city's interest in that, is saying that what is it, number 1?
Alternative 1, yes, sir.
Alternative number 1 is what is recommended. The floor is open for resolution of this problem
The floor is open for a
I
motion.
have a question for Mr. Lee Masters. Can I see that?
You may ask.
Plat, please. That's, you said that Mr. Fox's property does not meet the definition of having sewer available because it's not next to his property.
That small two-plus acre property.
It's here at his mother's house.
Correct.
Do these properties meet that definition?
They don't now, but they will.
Because you're choosing to put the line in front of them, but stopping short of the next door. That's a choice on the water department.
Well, that's one of three alternatives, and that's not the one we chose, we think's the best
I
one.
just want to be clear about that.
This, that you continue to say about, these little red dots on the backside, that he could go there. If he goes there, you're still talking about crossing a creek, aren't you?
Alternatives 2 and 3 would involve us making a creek crossing.
But did you not say something about if he could choose to go that direction to one of those manholes?
If we were to go to alternative 1, which goes down to Legacy Village, and he chooses to develop that property, he would have to either go up to the manhole at the corner of his property or design a system that would then go to any of those manholes across the creek.
So he still has really three options, is what you're saying. If he's not including this other, he can still go, if he decides he wants it, he can go to that manhole.
Certainly.
Okay. With alternate 1, or he can choose alternates 2 and 3.
If we go with alternate 2, alternate 3 would probably be, he would have to pump up to that because it's on the upper end, even though it's at a lesser elevation than that corner manhole up at the corner of his property. See, most of his property follows the creek that goes down, so if we put an alternative 3, he'd probably still have to pump up if he didn't want to cross the creek.
I have a question.
What are we actually trying to vote on right now? Is it
We're trying to vote on
Which
a
alternative?
solution to this. That's why I'm leaving it open for a proposal on one of these methods. See, the description is to discuss and possibly take action. Well, we've got 3 different alternatives. I want somebody to come forward and make a recommend and make a motion. But now, Mr. Head's got a question I can tell.
Yeah, the availability of service, since this 2-acre parcel existed when we annexed this property, does that still come into play, or aren't we obligated to provide sewer service?
No, that's undeveloped property, and you have to.
Oh, the house, the existing house.
Oh, the house is, sure, that is, it is. It'll have to be connected under the law. I mean, I just, there's I think we said it can be done, and we can do it. It's just that we have a policy in place right now that reads a certain way. But, you can decide exactly how you want that to hook up, but it should be connected to sewer.
The way the sewer use ordinance reads is, it defines availability of sewer as if a sewer is on a property adjacent, if it's in a city easement or city right-of-way, then that determines availability. Now, if they have to connect, there's another part of the sewer use ordinance that says if sewer is available and a house is within 150 feet of that sewer, they have to connect. They don't have an option. If they're more than 150 feet away, they don't have to connect, but they will be assessed a sewer fee as if they were connected. That's if sewer is available. Since sewer is not available, we don't have to require them to connect.
All right. Approximately how far is it from Mrs. Fox, the late Mrs. Fox's house, to where this manhole is that he would have to?
About
Under alternative
350 feet.
Okay. All right. Ms. Snyder, did you have something?
Okay, I have a question about the gravity pumps. We're using, am I saying that right?
The grinder pump?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're using those in the new section at Legacy,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
That's the same method that the homeowners are having to use.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, are they having to pay for them? The
Yes,
homeowners?
yes. Since it's an alternative to putting in a septic system or something like that. Anything that is a response from the house to our clean out or to our valve box, that is the homeowner's responsibility.
Casey Drive's using those and.
Yes.
But it will be our responsibility to maintain that. So once they put the initial capital outlay out, if that pump needs to be repaired or replaced,
It becomes our property.
Okay. Now, you've heard all this. Any other questions?
Yeah, just, in this case, we're only talking about one grinder pump, one property being served with that.
Correct.
Right.
If they want to be. Since they're not, since sewer's not available, they don't have to be on the sewer system.
All right, floor is open for a motion.
I move that we accept alternative number one.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Most of this was brought about because of the confusion about who owns some property at the manhole, which would have provided gravity flow, and you would not have had to purchase a pump and provide electricity and add that to your electric bill and worry about when the lights go out, your sewer backs up because there's no electricity to your pump. Since I was told today that the property issue is resolved, is that right, Mr. Nutting?
well, as far as the city's concerned, it's always been resolved. It's been our property. And the issue is Mr. Fox has not been able to present one bit of evidence that he's ever owned that property. The deeds read that his property ends at the eastern edge of his property is the middle of Wartrace Creek, and the western edge of the city property is at the middle of Wartrace Creek. And so he hasn't produced any evidence at all.
Under the circumstances, with different options and so much land behind it to be developed, obviously if you're going to develop it, the airdrop to the manhole on the greenway would be the obvious thing to do if he's going to develop. If it's just going to be one or two houses, and I've talked to Mr. Fox, he understands that it's going to have to pump up for those two homes if that's only two homes. Now, talking to a plumber recently, the estimate for just the pump, the tank, the inspections, and within 100 feet, you're talking about $6,000 for a pump system and run electricity to it. On homes in the legacy, that's a pretty small percentage. On starter homes or smaller homes, that's a pretty high percentage. I would, under circumstances with different options, and Mr. Fox is going to have to determine whether he wants to develop or he just wants to take 2 or 3 homes. He needs to bring it back which way he wants to go.
Yeah, it's his money, it's his responsibility to develop it. It's our sewer system. He can take connection at anywhere he wants to take connection, but it's his money, it's not our money.
But the motion on the floor is to dictate 1 of 3 options. And that should be his decision at the point in time he wants to do something.
Well, he's not the only party
Well, I
here.
think we're talking about, just as the issue you had out on Kenny's Road, I think we're talking about all these houses all the way down from Bill Jones Drive.
No, I think we're just talking about the mother's home and his house down below that, right? Just 2.
Well, alternative one would be able to have sewer service, it would just be under different circumstances.
But somebody else owns the mother's house now, right? It's
Correct.
different.
All right, so we're talking about alternative one. Are you saying alternative one does or does not do what you said to start with, to come down and make sewer available?
It does not. They would have to buy that pump, and we'd have to put in a...
No, I'm talking about those 6 houses.
Those 16 houses, it comes right down Old Greenbrier Pike
Yes.
in front of those 15 or 16 houses, correct. All 3 alternatives would do that.
Okay. So if we vote on alternative one,
Yes, sir.
are we saying we are going to provide that if enough of them sign up for it? That we're going to come down to that manhole that's at Legacy Village?
Yes, sir. They will be required to connect because all of those houses will be within 150 feet of the sewer.
And then if we do that, if that's what we vote for, then if Rusty wants to sign up, if he wants to choose that option, it's available to him.
Yes, sir.
If he doesn't, he can do without it, I guess, because of that location, or he can work on that other. If, in fact, he doesn't own the land that was to be developed, does he own that, or does he not?
He owns the land on that side of the creek that he wants to develop behind his mother's house.
Okay. He does not cross the creek.
Yeah, he allegedly said that he owned less than a third of an acre on the other side of the creek where there's a manhole.
And that, we have no evidence of that.
That he owns
And that's what our
that.
attorney has verified.
Yes, and it's irrelevant anyway, because we own the sewer system. So if we tell him he can take service there, he can do that.
Okay.
But, you know, it's at his cost. I think there was a sidebar on this to try to leverage the city putting a sewer, and
All right, I
we don't
think
wanna
we've
go there.
adequately discussed this unless there's something else that is paramount here that I'm missing. Floor's open for a motion. Who did make it? You made it.
Made motion.
Have it with a second. All right, we're at that part. That's alternative number one. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Sneed. Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Gregg.
No.
Head.
No.
Snyder.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
4-2. 5-2.
5-2. Okay. Motion passed. Now, 314 is to discuss and possibly act on a request for reallocation of funds from task order number 7 to task order number 8 for Gresham Smith. You might as well just keep standing there, Roger, like you're on tape for 3 of these things.
Correct.
Discuss that with us, please.
Task Order 7 was for a very specific chore. All the different task orders are for specific tasks. Task Order 7 was for determination of the condition of the sewers in specific subbasins related to what's now going to be Contract 4. There was a certain amount of money that was assigned that Gresham Smith said that they would have for their admin processes and engineering processes, as well as to hire some subcontractors to put in flow meters and to another contractor to do televising of the sewers and all that sort of stuff. The original intent of Task Order 7 was to also include televising the Sulphur Fork Creek Interceptor. When they started trying to do that, they found out that the flow was perpetually high and they could not get their camera in there, so they decided not to televise the interceptor. That, among other things, resulted in the work basically being complete for Task Order 7. There's $278,000 plus left in there. It will not be spent on Task Order 7. Now, Task Order 8 is a different chore. This Task Order 8 is for the administration and construction inspection of Contract 2A and 2B. Now, 2A is pretty much finished, but 2B is the one that's doing a lot of work on Walnut Street and Oak Street and Fifth Avenue, where they're really tearing up a lot. The original assumption when Gresham Smith and Partners was devising the plans and specs for 2B was that all of the laterals, or a high percentage of sewer laterals from the city sewer to the property line, would probably need to be rehabilitated. And they assumed that the good part of that rehabilitation would involve a cured-in-place pipe. Instead of excavating the road, you could do the same sort of pipe that's in the main line, but have it go up into the sewer lateral to effect the repairs. As a part of the contractor trying to determine exactly which could be sewer lined and which would have to be excavated, they did their own camera work. They ran a camera down the sewer, and each time they came to a lateral, their camera has another camera that is launched up into the lateral, and it can go 30, 40, 50 feet trying to determine the condition of the lateral. In that manner, the contractor could say, this one can be excavated, this one can be lined, this one excavated, this can be lined. Well, the original assumption of most of them being able to be lined turned out to be somewhat incorrect. The launching found out in some of these older parts of towns where the sewer line is oldest, the main sewer line, the clay line, comes equipped, or it was manufactured with a Y connection that they put up on top of the sewer. The camera launching found out that they tied into it by having a 45-degree angle and then a 90-degree angle to get over to the property. Well, sewer lining can probably handle a 45-degree angle, but it cannot handle a 90. They're finding that most of them that they assumed could be lined now, in fact, they're being excavated now, dug up. You see your roads really being torn up. In situ form hired a company called Pipework to do the excavation for a certain anticipated number of excavations. A different contractor, I had in here situ form, was going to do the lining, but another contractor was going to do the lining. Well, this is going to take more time to do the excavation than it is the lining. They can line maybe 3 or 4 a day. Excavation, 1 to 1.5 to 2. It's going to be taking substantially longer. So the contract to be with in situ form had a definite time frame to end. The initial assumption or initial anticipation by Pipeworks, the company that's doing the excavation, is that they might need another 7 months' time because of the time it takes. They're actually doing it quicker, but if you're going to extend the contract out for the contractor, we also need Gresham Smith and Partners to have their inspectors on site. Task Order 8 has a specific time frame involved, and what I'd like to do is take the money from Task Order 7, which is finished, move that into Task Order 8 to compensate Gresham Smith for the additional time.
All right, you've heard what he is proposing. Would someone like to make that in the form of a motion?
So move to,
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hubbard.
aye.
Charter.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Gregg. Head.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
All right, 7-0, and that, give us the monthly report now, Roger, if you will.
Well, we're kind of moving away from the downtown area. Yeah, I think most of the work,
Hallelujah.
we're not entirely happy with some of the work on Walnut Street and Oak Street where the contractor came in and did some patching that resulted in some rough areas, and we're trying to negotiate with the in situ foreman how to resolve that. We did look at the 60% design phase of the 2 wastewater holding tanks, so we're moving right along on that. Contractor is well working on contracts 3A and 3B. Now 2A, the contract time has expired, but there's still work being done, and we're not happy with the contractor about this. We may end up coming before the board requesting liquidated damages to be assessed. We're still negotiating between Gresham Smith and the contractor and ourselves on that, but we are moving right along. We do anticipate right now that by February, March of next year, we're going to be letting bids on the tanks, possibly contract 2C, as well as contract 4, which is for another specific 4 sets of subbasins. So we are moving right along.
There's been a lot of work, and
Yes, sir.
I've driven over a lot of the streets in town, and I will have to say I don't think there was any torn up anymore than Walnut, Garner, several of those. Oak has got a lot of it as well, but
You notice on Fifth Avenue,
Seventh Avenue is another one.
for a while, Fifth Avenue West was pretty well torn up. It was kind of rough
Yes.
riding. The contractor required the contractor to use a process called infrared heating and to fix the areas on Fifth Avenue that were torn up. Infrared heating basically heats up not only the concrete, the asphalt they put down, but also the parts of the asphalt that's been there for years and years and years, melts them, and then they kind of push them together where you really can't see that defined seam. That's where you get a lot of water infiltration. You get freeze-thaw, and pavement comes apart. So I think they've done a pretty good job on Fifth Avenue.
All right. Well, we thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Consent docket, do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the whole consent docket.
Second? Second. Call the roll, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mayor Cornell.
Aye.
Gregg. Sneed. Charter.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Well, I'd like to say that I think there was a lot of very significant work done tonight in terms of the proposals that were worked on and solutions taken care of the most. Paul, do you have anything before we wrap up?
I do, Mayor. Just want to remind the board that the National League of Cities Conference is going to be held in Nashville in the next few weeks. You'll never have a cheaper opportunity to attend this national conference. I think you'll find it very informative. If you're interested in going, let Carolyn Scott know as soon as possible, and Carolyn will get you registered. We'll get your meal per diems, any other mileage expenses, anything else that you'll need. Also, I will be leaving tomorrow to Chattanooga for the Tennessee City Management Association Fall Conference. I'll be back Friday afternoon, and Miss Gina will be in charge.
All right, anything further? Stand adjourned.